everyone. My name is Shruti, and before we get started, I really need to complain about my air conditioner. Can you believe that 2 years ago, in the middle of one of the hottest summers, it decided to break down? My family and I, we were frantically looking for solutions to avoid living in a sauna. We called up our most trusty contractors from Home Depot and did extensive research. That's why, naturally, we ended up choosing the one that was at the top of the list and had the most Yelp reviews and called it a day. Now, fast forward to 1 year later, we get our annual gas report from PG&E. And apparently, our gas usage was 23% higher than that of similar homes in the area. Did you know that, man, this air conditioner would just not stop giving us a break? There were just so many things that were wrong about it. For example, did you know that there could be dirty air filters that were blocking the airflow and made it work over time? Or, fun fact, there could be even manufacturing defects, yay, like refrigerant leaks that lead to lower cooling capacity. My parents and I had a very enlightening discussion about this and what we could do to fix it. Which is why we did nothing. What can we do about manufacturing defects, right? And it's not like we weren't replacing the dirty air filters at all, so there's not much we can do, right? Wrong. What if the issue wasn't with how we maintained it, but rather that we were trying to optimize something that was inefficient to begin with? What if we had chosen a different appliance in the first place, and why didn't we? There was an interesting study done in December 2025, very recently, about the extent to which thoughts about sustainability even come to consumers' minds. And what they did was they presented a series of products to consumers, to the participants, and asked them what are the top factors that they would consider while choosing a product. And this was across many countries, Brazil, United States, Britain. And across all of them, they found that environmental sustainability was only considered in 9% of purchases. And it was still only 12.1% among liberal people who say they really, really care about climate change. And what does this mean? This means that the barrier to considering environmental sustainability is not that we don't care. In fact, even Kim Cobb, the director of the Institute at Brown University's Environment and Societies, says it's quote unquote reasonable that people don't feel like they have the time or energy to care about climate action on top of the more immediate concerns like poverty and inflation. And this isn't wrong, but nowadays climate change can be an equally important and immediate concern. It's April 2026 right now here in California, and I'm sure many of you remember the heat wave we had last month, which was record-breaking not only because of high temperatures, but also because it happened during a month that's traditionally winter. In fact, here's what might be surprising. Scientists say that this would have been impossible if it weren't for climate change. And this is not the first time. No, this is the second time that scientists have come to such a conclusion, with the first time being an incident called the 2021 Pacific Northwest Heat Dome, otherwise known as the deadliest weather-related disaster in Washington state history. So these aren't future warnings anymore, but present-day evidence. The world as we know it is changing drastically, even something as fundamental as the seasons around us. Let's move to a more positive note. It's not all doom and gloom. We as individuals are so powerful, even especially through the appliances we buy. Here's a photo of my gas stove sitting at home. Did you know that according to a 2022 Stanford study, methane leaking from our gas stoves can contribute a climate impact comparable to 500,000 cars? And interestingly, 75% of this occurs while the stove is turned off, without you even knowing. Could be happening in many of your homes right now. What about an air conditioner? If just 1 in 10 households switched from natural gas to electric heat pumps, the climate impact would be comparable to removing 1 million cars off the road. So, clearly, we have a problem here because individually, while these purchases seem small or invisible, they add up. These aren't one-time decisions, but they repeat every day, every week, every month as we use them over and over. And the impacts just keep building up. That's why my message today starts at an individual level, and it can change the way you think about decision making and the environment in general. And my inspiration for this applies to so many more appliances here. And my inspiration for this is going to start at quite an unexpected place. This is a park in Mexico where you have to go through a sensory experience in Zensis. This is where you have to walk in a cave in complete darkness, and you're hearing and feeling different environments, streams, deserts, forests, hearing birds, maybe even bats. It's quite scary. And what was a nightmare for so many people became a surreal and transformative experience for me. To help you understand, it's as if all your worries just float away. And to even be a little philosophical, I suppose one of my biggest realizations from this was that life is such an unlikely and unexpected miracle the universe has given us. And I realized what a tragedy it is for us to ignore the environmental consequences of our decisions on such a rare, unique world. It's not like I, like many of you, didn't used to think we did enough individually. I throw things in the blue bin. I turn off the lights when I leave a room. Sometimes I volunteer for park cleanups. But the truth is, sustainability is not about these one-time visible actions, but rather it necessitates a cultural shift where we address the systems in our lives that we rely on, ranging from food, clothing, storage practices, transit, and so much more. Because most often, these all stem from one decision, one purchase, one habit years ago, and then taken for granted from then on. I'm talking about those moments when you instinctively grab the car keys without thinking if there's another way to get there. When you default to single-use plastic wrap because that's what you used growing up. And these assumptions can seem small at first, but it rears their ugly head when we come to the larger purchases like that air conditioner I bought 2 years ago. For example, if we had just considered energy usage as a criteria back then, we would have found out that there were Energy Star options and rebates, so it's not even as expensive as we had feared. So what is the real barrier here? We know it's important, and we know that we can do something about it. So the real barrier is going to be our assumptions and hesitance to change. Today, my entire talk has been answering a set of questions, because at the end of the day, the best way to challenge our assumptions is to be asking questions. And while today I've been exploring my own answers to this talk, every single one of you are going to have your own answers, because your story, your connections, your habits, the way something matters to you is going to be different from me. That's why today, first, I want you to ask yourself, what connection do you have to the environment, the world around us? I know, seems like an obvious question. We all care about the environment, right? But almost always, we need a reminder. For me, that reminder was this moment in this cave that I had. But for you, it could be something like, I don't know, loving national parks and what a fascinating ecosystem they have, or loving breathing fresh air after having been through a wildfire, or so much more. Next, this is sort of what my talk is about, but what my real question here is, what are your habits? What are the appliances in your home? And what are their daily costs? Definitely climate costs, but you'll be surprised at how many nuances there are. It could be something as simple as an inefficient stovetop actually leading to longer cooking times. And answering this question can be as simple as just searching up the brand or asking ChatGPT for 2 seconds. But you cannot underestimate the importance of challenging our assumptions. Lastly, ask yourself. Ask yourself, what if the best option isn't the most obvious one? This is all because when we're at that stressful situation when we need to replace an essential home appliance, it can be really hard to consider this. But by asking these questions beforehand, we are now prepared for those moments. I would like to end this talk with a quote from Jane Goodall. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. The world is changing rapidly, and it's up to us to decide whether it's going to be for the better or for the worse. We need to start consciously talking about and noticing the various systems in our life that we rely on and their effect on the environment and our futures. Thank you.